You are listening to
The Free Amigos.
Hey, I'm Casper.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Tony. Right, welcome everyone to episode 10 of the Free Amigos podcasts. And as always, we have my two amigos. We've got Casper over there in Indonesia, in Lombok. How are you doing, Casper?
Hello, hello. All good, all good. Love it here still.
What time is it?
Oh, it's in the middle of the night. So yeah, we got a bit of a problem here because we are talking to New Zealand at the same time. And so now we are literally all over the world. And the stupid thing here is that you guys from the UK made a good deal with New Zealand and I'm caught up in the middle. So for me it's 3 a.m. But hey, it's okay. We're going to talk about really important stuff today.
Exactly. Well, we have guests, so we've got to accommodate their needs, and I appreciate Jayden has with his hours and his job he works.
Guests first.
Exactly. And the other amigo here, Mark, down in Langley in Berkshire. How are we doing, Mark?
Hi mate, yeah, all good here. It's only 8 o'clock in the evening here, so I'm still wide awake. So I'm still on form.
We're still with it here in the UK. BST for the win.
Got away with it.
Exactly. And finally, our guest for today is Mr. Jayden Wilson, coming live from New Zealand. How are we doing, Jayden? Good, great to see you, mate.
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Thanks, buddy. Great to be here. It's 7 o'clock in the morning here, so I'm bright and bushy-tailed.
Coffee.
Fantastic, my friend. Fantastic. It's good to see you. Glad you could join us today, and really appreciate you taking the time out of your weekend. I know you have a busy week and whatever and work now, so we do really appreciate you spending this next hour or so with us anyway, mate. Right, so without further ado, we'll dive straight in. Now, the topic of today's episode is freedom from addiction. Now, obviously, that's played a massive part of your life, Jayden. We always want to just get into where you are today, really, with that. Obviously, you're 6 years in sobriety, aren't you? What, 6 years next month, I believe?
Yes, that's right, yep.
Yeah, so we just want to just touch on where you are today and how you're feeling and how you're... I suppose it's going to be a continued road to recovery, isn't it, at the moment? You're always going to be in that state, I imagine.
Yeah, that's right. And, the growth is something that happens on a daily basis. You know, you've got to deal with life on life's terms. And, but truly my life today is nothing compared to what it used to be. Like, the freedom from active addiction is the biggest gift that I could have ever had in recovery, you know. Just every day not having that desire to want to use is, allows me to free up all my time to create a life that I want, you know, so it's pretty amazing.
But you have a life now, I imagine, as you'd call it now.
Yeah, well, that's right, yeah. And it's not all about me, that's the thing. It's, I was never there for my children. I look back and I was there, but I wasn't a present father. I never valued my children as individuals. I used to see them as a package as such, and not treat them each individually for their own personalities and who they were. And I definitely wasn't being a positive male role model in their lives. So, it's like I said, it's not just about me, this journey. It's about being that role model for my kids, and so it's about where I'm at.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, because you've got 3 girls, haven't you? I'm right in saying, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, three girls, 17, 14 and 11.
Oh, that's a handful, isn't it? I bet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
it sure is.
So you've been clean for quite a long time now. What was it, Tony? You just said like 7 years now, almost, right?
6 years. 6 years next month, isn't it?
6 years.
Yeah, July, it'll be 6.
Okay, but still, so when you are starting a YouTube channel now, this is still what you are talking about. This is still your main topic. It's not like you left it behind you 6 years ago. It's still in your mind.
It's got to be in my mind. It's in my mind. You know, like I don't constantly look back at the destruction that it caused my life, but I know. I'm aware of it every single day because it's part of my daily gratitude, you know, like to live a life free of addiction. And so I've got a constant reminder every single day. And I need to be that way because I need that gratitude to live this life, you know. And it's not just, how do I put that? It's not just about the addiction itself. It's, you know, like, it's behaviours, you know, the behavioural patterns that you know that are easily highlighted by looking at the use of drugs, but they also filter out and ripple out to other areas of my life, you know, and the way I behaved about things. And you know, I will never stop being an addict, and you know, but the beauty is that I'm not in active addiction, but I know that it only takes a tiny little slip up, a tiny little change in the thought pattern, a tiny little decision to absolutely change everything. And being constantly aware that I have this demon in the back of my head waiting to come back out is something I need to be conscious of every single day.
Is it a bit of a balancing act then on a daily basis, Jayden, or is it?
I'll tell you what, Tony, like today, no. My first year of recovery, most definitely. You know, like 6 years on, my mindset, my thought patterns, everything is completely changed. It's completely turned in the opposite direction. And I pretty much give a lot of my mindset change and the life that I have today, I give that gratitude to pretty much the treatment centre that I went to that started me off on this journey.
I watched a lot of your videos last night, and you've done something which is amazing to pull yourself out of that. Now you knew a lot of people on the road on the process of recovering that didn't make it, you know, or have gone back into it. So that's one thing I really want to base this pod around is how you did that. How did you change your mindset and get out of it? Obviously the recovery centre was huge. You stuck it out. Some people spend a day in there. You spent 5 months in there. But before we get to that point, I just want to go back a bit because I suppose, you know, I've always looked at addiction as a sign of a trauma somewhere. Like it's almost like trying to fill a hole somewhere with something external. So could you pinpoint it as to what might have been there from the past that there was an issue? Was it something that you just fell into in your teenage years, or was it a result of some kind of trauma in the past that led you onto that route initially?
I sure can pinpoint it, and that's like I was about to get onto before, the beauty of the treatment centre that I went to, and everything that you just discussed is they are all contributing factors to how I got to where I was. And you know, I'll say now, giving up the drugs and the alcohol was the easy part. You know, going back through my life, seeing where behaviours that I had started well before I started using drugs, where they started, and what they were a product of, highlighting those things, and you know, really delving into my past was how how I'm able to have a massive mindset change, because without identifying those things in my past, I can't change the behaviours that led to me being the way I was. So there's many aspects, and like when I went through them, some of them seemed really, really quite insignificant. but they all contributed. Like, you know, I go back to when I was, you know, some of my earliest memories, like when I was 6 years old, and you know, my father, he would ask me to go and get him a beer out of the fridge, and like that was really my first job. You know, I was so excited about it, and I'd go to the fridge and I'd get my father this beer, and he'd open it, and then my treat for getting the beer was to get a sip. You know, think nothing of it, absolutely nothing of it. But you look 20 years down the future, and here's me opening a can of bourbon and getting my daughter to have a drink when she's like 10, 11 years old, and my reasoning for that in the back of my head to tell me that that was okay was that I wanted my girl to get used to alcohol, and I didn't want her to be one day vulnerable in the gutter and could, you know, get potentially hurt by somebody. You know, that was my thought processes back then. It was just ridiculous, you know, things like that. Also, I am the youngest sibling of our family, and being the youngest and the only boy, mummy's boy at that, I got away with so much things. You know, I got away with so much. Like, my mum just turned a blind eye to everything. And like, that's where my manipulation started. You know, like I was ashamed that I used to get beaten up by my sisters, you know, especially towards my friends. You know, like, if they knew that a girl was beating me up, that just shows them a weakness of me and something that I never wanted to do. So in turn, I'd turn around and I'd run to my father after, just out of the blue, and I'd say that my sister had just kicked me in the balls, and then she would get a bollocking, you know, and I'd sit in the background just laughing, saying, I got you back, you know, and then, you know, this is where this manipulation started, you know, way back then. You know, before I even touched drugs.
Manipulating the world around you and manipulating yourself as well at the same time there.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, it's like, I could bring up many things, but like for another example, like, my father was really, really big on respecting my mother, in the sense of if she's cooked you a meal. And there was meals that we didn't like. You know, we all know as kids that there was something that we didn't like. Well, when it came to the absolute horriblest meal I could ever think of, a meal that I still don't eat to this day. You know, and my sisters both shared the same passion with this food. Like, you know, if we would sit at the table till 3 o'clock in the morning if we hadn't eaten it. You know, like, we would sit there and, like, we couldn't leave, you know, and all of a sudden, like, my sister would get up and take off, and my father would chase her, like, outside, down the street, like, absolutely chase her. Like, this is how passionate he was about sitting at that table and eating that meal. And meanwhile, while he's out doing that, my mum's scraping mine into the rubbish bin and leaving a little bite left on my plate. You know, a little bite left, so when he came back I could finish it, and then I was done. You know, like, that's, like, you know, that seems so insignificant right now, but those sorts of things played out a massive part of my life. You know, like, a massive part of, you know, once I came into addiction, I was just this manipulative, what's the word for it? Like, I was just, I was a chameleon. I was a chameleon. You know, like, I could put on any single persona that I wanted, and I'd make people believe what I wanted them to believe, you know. And I taught these, you know, I learnt these skills early on, like, really early on.
So how did you, because we're going really fast now in this conversation for people that don't know you, but I think a lot of people that are listening to this podcast do know a lot about you right now already. But how, if you have the chance, if you are a chameleon, why and how did you choose, within brackets, to take drugs? Because that's what you went into in the end, right? So from alcohol into drugs. Why did you want to go into that chameleon out of all the opportunities?
Well, So, for a start, alcohol was a thriving thing in our household. I'm actually really grateful when I look back at the family I did have and what they tried to provide me. While I'm talking about the importance of the things that happened in my past, well, I got in trouble at one stage, and I heard my father say directly to me that I was the son that I wasn't the son that he wanted. This was obviously in the heat of the moment at the time, and he didn't really mean that. But as a young boy, that destroyed me. That absolutely destroyed me. And from that point on, I lived up to every single minute of that, and I made sure that I was going to be the son that he didn't want.
You doubled down on that.
For sure. And so a couple of doors down from our house, there was this house that took on children from families that their kids got taken away from them. So there was a lot of foster kids at this place, and they are the kids that I chose. They are the kids that I chose to hang around, right? They're the kids that I chose to spend the majority of my time with. And what actually happened is I started to build resentments against my family and for being too privileged. I hated my parents for that I hated that I was better off than these kids. I wanted to be the same as these kids, and I started to resent my parents at a very young age for trying to give me what I needed. How stupid is that?
I fully understand that, actually. It's kind of what's happening now. Is we now, if you just open up your Facebook and everything, I'm just talking to the general public here, because I come from kind of a similar background. But what I see now is where everyone goes like white privilege. Yeah, well, I'm white. Do I have a privilege? I haven't got any of that background information, because I grew up in a little tiny little farmer's town. So I've got no judgment there. I've got no. But yeah, I grew up quite similar to what you're saying now. Yeah. So. Is that a bad thing? I don't know.
Well, it's almost like you're supposed to feel bad for it, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. It's not like we were a really well-off household. We were just, your average household, which was, to these kids that I was hanging out with, was well-off, because, they... Yeah. So, obviously the behavioural patterns that these other kids had that were all over the shop, I started to adapt, because I was being a chameleon and fitting in. I wanted to fit into that atmosphere. So as I took all these, these behaviours I've started to mention, because there's many, many more, as I took these into my teenage years, obviously these are the relationships that I sought out wherever I went, and along came with that was drugs, was crime, was, and that's pretty much, my mother was an alcoholic. Unfortunately, she passed from alcoholic and diseases and lung cancer in 2012. Her father was an alcoholic. His father was an alcoholic. I'm not really one that's gonna say that I have this disease because it runs in my family. I'm not sure if I completely agree with that, but it's definitely a repetitive pattern.
Yeah, but you do identify yourself there. You do, like Mark said, you start every video with, I'm an alcoholic. Oh, I'm an addict, sorry, I'm an addict, sorry. So you do identify yourself with it. Why is that?
Something from the Yeah, the NA meetings. Is that something you just acknowledging it? You have to acknowledge it.
For a start, yeah, that is the introductory to introducing yourself in an AA meeting, and or an Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and seeing my channel is due to exactly that, living a life in recovery. I find it quite fit to be announcing myself in that way, because I'm pretty much telling, anyone can sit there and talk about addiction. You can have a drug and alcohol counsellor that's never actually been through it. He's done all the book work and he's a counsellor, but he's, in my opinion, never a quality counsellor. The ones that have been through it themselves,
Yeah.
And this is the thing. My counsellor that I had, he went to the same treatment centre that I did 18 years prior to me. And when he introduced himself to me in his office, he introduced himself to me as an addict. And I completely looked up to this guy from the very start, And if I looked at his life, and I was just like, well, he's still identifying himself this way. It must work. So,
right.
And like I mentioned earlier, it is something that I need to be aware of all the time. I can't forget that I'm an addict. If I let my guard down, it could truly destroy my life. But there's other aspects to this too, like people have different mindsets. I know, because I took that life to the very bitter end, and there was absolutely nothing left for me but to die. And I know that if I ever go back there, I will die. You go to the rooms of NA or AA, and they always say this policy that it's always an open door. Don't be ashamed to come back if you relapse. Well, I couldn't take that on board to myself, because to me that's a reservation. Okay, because after losing absolutely everybody in my life and not having a soul there, and then to find out that there's these people that will welcome you with open arms, no matter what, okay, that's a great thing. Don't get me wrong, but I couldn't. Myself personally, I could not adapt that, because that would give me that reservation that, okay, these people are always going to be there for me. For me to live the way I do and to carry on in this journey that I'm on, I have to know that if I go back out there, I will die. That's such a scary thing, even looking back at that. Like, I was completely powerless, I was completely powerless over my addiction in any form, I did whatever it took to get my hands on, and it could be anything, like I say, I used something on a daily basis for at least 20 years, whether that was methamphetamine, whether that was heroin, whether that was just alcohol or cannabis. I shouldn't say just alcohol, actually. That's minimizing it, and I shouldn't say that, because that's where my journey began. So, and that's where my journey also ended. Alcohol is the most readily available drug that you can get, and the cheapest, which is why I started on it, and exactly the reason why I finished on it.
I had this thought when I was back in Amsterdam this summer. Last summer I was back in Amsterdam, and of course the weird thing when you go back to Amsterdam, you can smoke weed, and well, as I was told you, Tony and Mark, I never smoked weed. I never took any drugs in my life. And no, this is not just me saying this for my mom. No, I really didn't. I was not a drugs kind of. I was never. But of course, I was drinking. I was drinking heavily because my dad, and he told me, "Oh, proper beer. We should go to Ireland. Oh, we should go to Ireland and we should drink some beers." But I was never a drugs guy. But when I went to so 6 years ago, I smoked a joint because I was on a tropical island and we were playing Bob Marley, and this is really good, and I loved it. I can tell you, I loved it. I'm not going to make any statements here. But when I got to Amsterdam this summer, I realized, okay, so I was having a lot of stress when I got back to Amsterdam for all kinds of reasons. And so I was like, okay, I can do two things now. I can go to a bar and I can order beers and whiskeys, or I can go to a coffee shop. And if I go to the bar, I'm not going to go there because I will become drunk and we will end up in a fight with a random stranger. Or when I go to the coffee shop and I just get a joint and I go to my garden and I smoke a joint. Did you ever see Bob Marley having a fight? And this is when I came up with this thing, like, what if we would just change all the rules for bars and coffee shop the other way around? You know, so you need to, so let's say that all the bars are coffee shops now and all the coffee shops are bars. So you really need to identify yourself. You can only get 1 pint. You can take it home. I mean, so the regulation of drugs there is, in my opinion, the other way around. And I think that, well, it's a difficult conversation, of course, but yeah. Alcohol is, in my opinion, the most destructive one of all, yeah.
It sure is. It causes the most deaths. It destroys the most families. And I tell you what, when I first came out of treatment, and I was angry. I was angry at them because obviously anything that ever came up, like a TV commercial, or you walk into the supermarket and the first thing you see is wine. Yeah. You know, that used to get on my nerves. I was just like, oh my God, look at all this crap around us. No wonder, you know, people are destroying their lives. But that was because I had so much resentment against, you know, and I had to come to realise that not everybody was like me, you know. So
let's just for a second, let's just really dive in your story here, because you didn't just go for a joint or a beer. You went really deep in an addiction. Would you like to share your story there?
Yeah, I'd say, like, as I spoke with you guys, I started on alcohol, and that was at about 10 years old. I was stealing alcohol from the fridge from my parents, and then meeting my friends down the road and making rocket fuel concoctions of whatever it was into little drink bottles, and meeting my friends down the road. And so another friend that I was hanging around with, his parents grew cannabis plants, so he started bringing that to the party. You know what I mean?
Sounds like a party.
So I'd bring the alcohol. He'd bring this freshly plucked cannabis off his parents' plants, and so realistically, that's where it all started. And then it wasn't till you know, I started to grow cannabis myself, and that was mainly due to so I didn't have to buy it, and so I could make some money from it. And that carried on for quite some time, and I wasn't actually introduced to methamphetamine until I was 20 years old. And at the age of 20, when I had my first taste of it, I was in a completely different realm, you know. And I tell you what, right now, that I spent the next 20 years chasing that first high that I got that day. And no matter how much I ever had, I never got there. It started from me having that one experience that one time. I think it was a Friday or Saturday night. And then I might have not had it that next weekend. And then the weekend after I had it. And then it became, because obviously it keeps you awake, it became a Friday, Saturday thing. Recover Sunday. Go back to normal life on Monday. Then that began to progress into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then it, obviously, as you can see the pattern, it just kept progressing out and out. Back then at the start, it didn't, you know, well, it didn't really, I didn't feel that it was having this dramatic effect in my life. Once I had a family, I always said to myself that, you know, I didn't have a problem. Actually, to tell you the truth, all the way till I asked for help, I always said I didn't have a problem. I lived in denial about it the whole fucking time. Excuse my language.
No, speak freely.
We all speak French.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously along the way, you know, I went to LSD. I tried any drug you could think of. I've tried it. You know, pretty much. It wasn't for me. It wasn't. You know, my daily things were alcohol, cannabis, and methamphetamine. The rest was just a bonus. The rest was just if I came across it, or if I couldn't get my hands on something else, I was into it. Whatever. Yeah.
Anything would do.
Yeah. Anything that was going to alter my state, I was all for. You know, so I guess I conditioned myself that way. That, you know, and going back to what you did mention earlier, there was a lot of underlying factors, and yes, I did have some trauma from when I was young, and you know, at the time, going through this using, not once did I ever think that I was actually using to cover anything up. You know, it became such a way of life that I just thought I didn't realise that. I never actually realised that I was doing it to cover things up, to cover up being not good enough for my father, to cover up for the fact that I was molested by an uncle, to cover up the fact that like there's lots of things. I really didn't think that that's what I was doing, you know. And
when did you start? Was that what you realised in the end? Were you covering up things? Was that why?
Yeah, I wasn't allowing myself to feel anything. I didn't want to feel normal feelings.
How does that work then? How can you take drugs to? And this is a bit rhetorical, of course. Sorry for that, but how can you take drugs or alcohol, whatever, because you want to feel more, but you also want to you want to feel the senses, and you want to numb the senses at the same time.
Well, realistically, I sort of wanted to choose what I felt when I felt it, you know, like that. You know, like I was obviously scared and fearful of facing my demons, of facing things that I didn't want to with my natural human emotions. I didn't want to feel that, you know. Like I said, I can look back and say that now. I can look back and see that now. But at the time, I didn't even know that's what I was doing. I didn't even know that, you know.
How far down the drain did you have to go before you realised this?
Before I realised that's what I was doing?
Yeah.
I would say my last year of using, I knew already. My last year, I knew because it had become so desperate.
How far did you go? How far away from your own reality did you go?
Where was your bottom?
Where was my bottom? My bottom, I was sleeping under a bridge, freezing my ass off, waking up with icicles on my face, eating out of rubbish bins, absolutely no contact with the outside world. I'd always prided myself on getting work, so I knew I could get money if I needed it. So at this stage, just before where I'm talking about now, I went out and got a job, worked for 2 days until I got paid, and then didn't go back. I just wanted that money for alcohol. And the main reason for that is because I had a car that I stole, and I wanted to finally end my life. I'd had an attempt in the past, or a couple of attempts in the past, to end it because I was sick of what was going on. Those were through overdose. But this time, I had completely decided that I was going to gas myself in the car. And the only way I felt like I could get the courage to actually do it was to, I remembered back to when I was a young boy and the courage that alcohol gave me. And, so that's where I went with it. And so here I am underneath this bridge in this car, hose set up to the exhaust pipe, back into the window, sitting there sculling this bottle of scotch. Not a person that wanted to have anything to do with me. And I'm sitting in this desperation thinking that I've lost absolutely everything in my life, starting off with possessions, then to friends and family. All I had was a bag of rags. That's all I had. And, it was beside myself to think that I had lost all this stuff that I knew that was my life, to know I'd lost it all for a drug that didn't even get me high anymore. So I'd got to that point, well, what is the point? What is the point of going on? What is the point of going on? I've got nothing. I've lost it all for this stupid drug that doesn't even work. So that's where I was at. That Casper, to answer your question, that's where I was at. And
what stopped you then, Jayden?
Well, what stopped me, Tony, is deep down inside, I didn't want to die, mate. Like, as much as I thought that was the only way out, I didn't want it. I didn't want to die. And my cry for help.
Good choice.
my cry for help was actually, I picked up my phone, and it had like 2% charge, because the only way I could charge it was to go to like a McDonald's or something like that, and I was fucking ages away from anywhere like that. And I picked up my phone and I texted my father, and he lived in Australia. He still does live in Australia. And I pretty much said goodbye. And really, that was my cry for help.
What did he say?
First thing he said, because I was absolutely miles away from where I am now. I got in that car to where I went because I didn't want my kids to find me dead.
Yeah, what did he say? Did he answer something there?
He actually just said, can you please let your cousin come and pick you up? Because she was actually in the same town. She was actually in the same town that I'd ended up in. And here's me saying, right, that I've got absolutely no one, I've got all this no help, I've got nothing. But if I actually reached out, there was fucking help there. There was help everywhere. I just was too blind to see it.
Yeah.
I was too proud to ask for it. And to be completely honest, the reason I said yes, she can come and get me, was because I was hungry.
Oh, I love that one. Sorry, but I just effing love that one. This is the weirdest thing I've had in my life as well, is when you are so far down and it doesn't matter where you are, but then you actually go like, oh, actually I'm a bit hungry. And actually, it would be really nice. And I had a similar situation where I was so far down and I couldn't stand up anymore. And then a monk came up to me and gave me some food, and I was like, yeah, that will do. And it's not. Well, of course, I love the fact that it's a monk that comes up to me, but I was just like, oh yeah, some rice and some whatever. And I shoved it down my face, and I was just going like, yeah, that will do. Actually, that's enough. That will get me through wherever. I don't know. Just someone giving me something as well.
The act of kindness.
Yeah. And I'd say, like, to carry on, that was the start of my turning point. As I waited for her to come and find me, which was only realistically about half an hour and she was there, but that felt like 3 hours, right? It was the longest time ever. And in that process there, that is when I finally sat there and looked deep within myself and fucking realised I needed help. But honestly, up until that point, no matter what had fallen away from my life, no matter what had disappeared, no matter what I had done, no matter what trouble I'd got in with the police, no matter what, none of that shit ever pointed to me to tell me that I had a problem that I needed to fix. The family life that I destroyed, none of that stuff ever pointed at me to say, Jayden, you need to fucking change your life. None of it did. But it was that moment when I was there sitting there waiting, and it was like my body was flooded with this feeling, and I just, all of a sudden, I felt 5 times heavier than I was. Like my body had just finally just grounded. Like it just, I felt so much weight, and then I was just like, oh my God, I fucking need help. And once this person came to pick me up and fed my stomach, that day is so vivid. I can still see every single thing in there. You know, like I made that choice right there, right then, and I was like, you know, for the first time in my life, I actually got a vision. I actually decided to think about what a life could be like without drugs. The very first time ever. Before then, all the way leading up to then, I never, ever, ever pictured once what a life could be like without drugs. I never even bothered to look that way until this time. And it gave me a glimmer of hope. Yeah. Did I go off track there? No. I did.
And the beauty is, you can never go off track with those guys. You can never.
Okay, I know I can quite easily go on a tangent, but
well, I'm just a bit blown away really by the vulnerability that Jayden shows, especially, you know, talking through his story here. Incredible strength and openness to go into that darkness, and you know, it's something that, you know, has become a theme on this pod of we've discussed this dark night of the soul, this rebirth, and you know, it's been quite a dark week actually.
It's a really dark week. Yeah,
we had Simon on earlier in the week, and he'd have been to a very dark place as well and recovered. And the focus of the pod really is to help others who've been in a similar position.
Yeah, I watched I watched your podcast last night. I watched that one of Simon last night, and it blew me away. You guys are doing an amazing job here. You're definitely gonna. I know you are, and that's why I'm so grateful that you have asked me to you know, come and share my story here.
And you know, I guess the one real question that I really want to get out of this pod, you know, is to help others that may be struggling through in exactly the same place that you were. So what I really want to know is go back to the start, really, that question that I had at the beginning, which is, how did you manage to free yourself from this situation when so many around you in recovery were falling back or going into recovery, and then for a few days and then coming out again? And even some of these guys that you knew along the path who didn't make it through and passed away, and you stuck it out in recovery for 5 months. So what was it? What was that mindset, really?
The people that I've seen succeed, unfortunately, they've had to lose everything to get there. That choice to want to change can't be for the benefit of somebody else. It cannot be because your partner tells you she wants you to clean up. It can't be because your kids want you to stop using drugs. It can't be because you're...
Want to be you.
It can't.
Just from within yourself.
That's right. It can't be because your parents are looking at you going, come on, change your life. None of that shit will ever work.
Yeah.
I've seen it time and time again. These people come into recovery, they last a little bit, and then they fall off. They come back, then they last a bit, and they fall off. It's never, ever, ever stuck, But these people that have come in, that have lost, But the other thing I must mention is that it's a natural thing for family and loved ones to support someone going through this, or try to support them, But no one actually really sees that these family members are actually enabling these addicts. They're enabling this behaviour because they've always got these people to fall back on.
Yeah.
They're always there when some shit happens. They always come, they don't realise it. It's love. They don't realise, they don't want to see you hurt. So they are there trying to do everything they can to make you change. But you're not going to change unless it comes from within.
And then a simple question, like a lot of positive change, like you say, like it will be family that you would love, right? Normally it's family that you love, and there you go, okay, I can't go there and there and there. But as you said, you were also conditioned by your family back in the days. How would you work with that conundrum? I mean, how can you get over fighting your family and loving your family at the same time? What's your thought there?
Like, no matter what happened in my past, no matter what made me into the person that I was, at the end of the day, ultimately, it's still my life. And the person that I need to forgive, the person that I need to love, is me. Without me doing that, everything external doesn't matter. None of it matters, Yes, my children right now, and my partner, my new partner, my amazing partner, all benefit from me because I am the man that I am through my experiences, right? But still to this day, I don't put my children first. I don't put my partner first. What I put first is my recovery, because without it, I have none of it. I have none of it. Without the foundation of me...
Got to be your founder.
Yes, Tony. Without me continuing down this path, or me forgetting about this path, that's why I can't forget about it. That's why I announce myself as an addict, because I am a fucking addict. I always will be. Without me having acceptance around that, it's all about acceptance. Without me having acceptance around that and putting that first in my life, then everything else, I wouldn't have everything else,
Now, I've got a really, really simple question here. Tell me all about your future.
Wow.
Everything. I want to hear everything.
So,
what's your future?
Okay.
Come on.
I can see that since I've come into recovery, my life has been all about growth, you know, and it's on a daily basis, you know. And I went the treatment centre I went to. It's a 12-step program, and I truly believe that any human being would benefit from going through those steps. It's not just about alcohol and drugs. Every single person would benefit from going through those steps. Because one of the hardest things that anybody can do is look truly, honestly, deeply into themselves, and take ownership for everything. So that path of growth, that first 5 months, where I was taught to never show any weakness my whole life, and I never did, until I fucking ended up into this treatment centre where I found out that I was bawling my eyes out every single day. And the immense change that I felt from every single day, letting go of this stuff and then learning from it and then identifying that behaviour.
But now, where's your future? Where are you going?
I'm going there with this.
Tell me, where are you going to be in 5 years, and why and how? Because you're a legend.
Well,
you are a legend.
What I was trying to say there, Casper, is I became addicted to growth. That was my new substitute for losing.
Yeah.
You know, that was my substitute for losing. That's where I was going with it. Sorry, but so what I ended up doing is, I got in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. I started to feel a bit stagnant, right? And I was searching out to find something else. I was like, I needed more, you know. It wasn't giving me the fix that I wanted. Yeah. And that's when I came across you, lovely gentlemen, you know, on this path. That's how I came across you guys, you know. And now I see endless possibilities for my life. In 5 years' time, I will be financially independent. I will have built a life that I chose a life that I choose, not for somebody else, not for something that I've always have done, not to be told what to do, to build something of my own, to be a guiding light for my children, to show them that there's another way. You know, they don't have to follow this old path that generations and generations and generations before that have, you know. Yes, I'm a recovered addict, but I've got a second chance at life.
So how would you do that?
I probably can't tell you the exact things, pinpoint the exact picture as such, but I do know that in some form or another I'm going to be helping to change other people's lives that have not just gone through this path of addiction, but also families involved, you know, because addiction's not just about the addict. It's about the ripple effect that addict has on everybody else around them. And families need to know, they need to know how to heal. They need to know why people act the way they do. And ultimately, Casper, like I said, I don't know the exact picture of this, how this is going to play out, but I know this is the path that I'm going to be on.
That's my only question, mate. That's my only question. My only question there is, I know that you're going to do that, and I know you're going to be really good at that. And I'm just asking you, are you going to do it? Are you going to help?
I think we all know the answer to that, don't we?
Help other people that went through, the people that went through what you went through, and give them opportunities and lights on the horizon.
I did have a vision of something when I came into early recovery, and it's still vividly in the back of my mind, and I'd love to do it. I would like to go to schools and share my story with people, you know, at the point of where I made that change, around 10, 11 years old, and share my story and what it did to me and to my family, to these children, in children's terms, of course, not getting too hard into everything and scaring them too much, or you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to, you know, because that was a crucial time in my life. That was the crucial time when I made those decisions and I took that path. You know, if I could share my story and it made even one child, if it made even one child think about a choice that they were about to make, if it changed the way they thought about that, then, you know, I'd be fulfilling some sort of purpose. You know, I cannot let my crisis go to waste. I cannot let my story, I cannot let that go to waste. I cannot keep that inside of me.
It's your responsibility.
It's a waste.
Now. Yeah.
It is. It is a responsibility, Tony, and that's like...
That's it. It's something I always just think about is, you know, going back to how we all met is, you know, seeing an ad somewhere, probably on YouTube, from mentors, and now starting on this journey to being an entrepreneur and creating our own business. But I'm sure one of the things that you've noticed, like we all have, is that you go in to this journey thinking about financial side and business, but, you know, very quickly you realize that it's about a hell of a lot more than that, and that the actual gold in the journey is the development and growth that you go through as a person.
Yeah, there sure is, but there's something on this journey with the online business. There's something that came to me pretty freaking quickly within the first 2 weeks, and that thing was that I started the journey in search of additional income. Right?
Yeah.
2 weeks later, wasn't even about that. 2 weeks. It only took me 2 weeks. Yes, it is going to be there, but 2 weeks it took for me to realise that this is an avenue, learning these skills is an avenue for me to be able to share my story. I don't know how yet.
Yeah.
I don't know how that plays out, but I know now I can reach the world. You know, it's not just about going to my local meeting and helping those people there. You know, it's not just about that. It's about I can reach anybody, anywhere, you know? And that's what I got that realisation in the first couple of weeks.
You can market your message to whoever needs to hear it now, Jayden.
I've got one last question here, is because we talk about addiction, we talk about how you grow up, we talk about all those things. Addiction is, of course, a really difficult thing, as in what we started off with. Aren't we all addicted? Aren't we all addicted to our Facebook? Aren't we all addicted to being online? And when people go into an addiction too far, that they leave their families behind and they leave their life behind. Jayden, can I give the floor to you for just 1 minute? Give a good talk, a good pep talk to people that are in a situation that you were in before.
Okay, well, my advice for anybody out there that's starting to feel their world crash down around them, is to have an honest look at themselves. And it's not that easy to do. For me, as you know, it took a lot of pain. A lot of pain that could no longer be covered up with the use of a mind-altering substance. It's Casper. It's a hard thing to say. Like it's a hard thing to say. It's you know.
What's hard to say?
What's hard to say is that you can't help anybody that doesn't want the help. You know what I mean? You can't. Every single person is in denial that they need help until they get to that point of desperation. If I could say one thing, it would be that these people need to plug in and listen to stories like my own to know where this continual behaviour is going to take them. And it is inevitable. It is inevitable. It might take a week, it might take years, but it's inevitable. You will end up at that rock bottom. So I'd say the more that people can plug into people like myself and figure out how I've been able to change my life and these other people have been able to change theirs, and to follow along with us, like it's the only way that people are going to get to be able to attack this at an earlier stage than having to go through the crap that I went through.
Fully agree.
This is my point where I want to go back to children, to the turning point that it was for me. You know, I don't want to repeat what I've said before, but that's where my life changed. That's the direction I went down, and that was the pivoting point for me. You know, I'm a very, very lucky person. You know, I got to live that life to the bitter end, and now I've gone back to that crossroads and I've got a whole new path. You know, not everybody gets this chance. Not everybody gets this chance.
We're fortunate. You've been able to. You've got this second chance, haven't you?
I have, but I've done absolutely everything it's taken to get this. You know, and if, from my point of view, if you don't have that passion and that drive to want the best life that you could possibly get for yourself and for your family, then you're going to have to keep using. You're going to have to keep getting to that point where you're going to want to change. And that's a horrible thing to say, and it's a scary, scary path to be on, because there's that.
This is the moment you make the change. It's up to you. It's up to you.
That's right. You know, and the scariest part about it is if you keep pushing those boundaries, if you keep going down that path, you will get to that point, and that decision, you don't know which one it's going to be. That one decision could absolutely end everything, or allow you to create a life on your own terms, like a life of your dreams, like, you know, like the one I sit here and have today. Like this, I tell you right now, I'm not in a million years that I think I'd ever be able to have a life like I do now. Not in a million years. And that is all comes down to my commitment and my dedication to wanting to change. So to everyone else out there, if you feel like deep down inside of you that you want to change or you need to change, it's not about anyone else around you. It's not about your family. It's not about what you have. It's about your desire that's deep down inside of you. What do you want from your life? Are you ready to give up? Are you ready to lie over and die? I thought I was. But if you're not, and you have that glimmer of hope inside of you, I just want to say that you can all do it. You can all create this life. You can all create an amazing life in recovery. And I think I'll just leave it there.
How amazing was that?
Jesus.
Jayden, absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Now, we need some of our brave soldiers here. Mark, I think you're the one here to do this because you got the low voice. Or Tony, do you want to do it? Tony, can you close it off? Okay, one of you, come on.
Can you do it, Mark? On a bit.
Yeah, just absolutely blown away by that.
Blown away at the moment.
Thank you, Jayden. Incredible story.
Yeah, I'm a bit speechless, to be honest. Especially that denouement there from Jayden. It was.
Absolutely true. Just take the power back in your own hands. This is the freedom that we're talking about, guys.
Do you want to know how I know this is my path and I know this is my purpose? Because right now, every single atom in my body is alive. Like, from saying this, from talking about this, every single hair on my body is standing up.
And for the people that can't see this video, because no one can, because this is a podcast, he's having tears and joy, and his cheeks are red from power, because this is the real truth.
I feel it. It's quite visceral. Just hearing, even if I just close my eyes and just listen to what you're saying, Jay, it's immensely visceral. And even just being able to see you, I can see the emotion on your face, how that what you've said and what you've shared here, and what that it's evident what that means to you, and the passion that you and the change that you want to make going forward for other people, and that's really touched me as a father. I'm saying that you want to help kids, you want to prevent rather than cure, and if you can make that change in kids within their preemptive years, and I just with it. You blow me away, Jayden. You blow me away. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know how you can do that.
Yeah.
What an amazing story. Amazing story. And as always, again, these podcasts are not for us to do any commercial stuff, but it's just to have people on to share their story. That's one, and step number two is, of course, to help other people to change their lives. And what an amazing story here. Amazing opening up. Absolutely, we are all a bit, but thank you so much for sharing that story, because that's what's so important. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for giving me the opportunity here, and I'm really grateful that you guys have asked me, and it's a privilege to be here. So yeah, thanks.
The privilege is all ours.
Yeah, thanks, Jayden. And anyway, listening, we'll put the links into to Jayden's YouTube channel,
check it out.
Which he's building at the moment, which goes into more depth, and as I said before, is incredible. Some of the vulnerability and the truth. Yeah. But there we go, guys. Thanks so much again to Jayden.
Thank you,
for
Jayden.
telling your story today. And thank you, Tony. Thank you, Casper, for joining in as well. And guys, we'll be back. We'll be back very soon. We've got some more amazing stories coming up. Will they top that? I don't know, but we'll do our best. But there we go, guys. Thanks.
Next week, more stories.
Next week,
Bye.
back again.
Cheers.
Bye for now.
I'm gonna go and lie down.
You have been listening to
Free Amigos.
Hey there, hope you've really enjoyed listening or watching to the conversation today. And as promised, we have all the links to the topics discussed in the description below and also on our website.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to hit that subscribe button or follow the link to our brand new website where you can sign up to our weekly newsletter.
Thank you for watching or listening. We hope you got something good out of it. If you've got any interesting topics you'd like us to discuss or any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And that's it. See you in the next pod. Adios.
Cheers.